Verso is a fascinating character, and since Clair Obscur Expedition 33's release a year ago today, there have been several debates about him. Is his ending the right one? Is he good? Is he bad? Who is he really? Who was Verso? And who is the Verso that we meet? In this video, I'll be taking a deeper look at one of the most complex and interesting characters and who he really is, Verso the Stranger. There is a lot of conflict inside of Verso, but I think the biggest one is that he doesn't know who he is. When Verso and Painted Renoir speak to each other at the end of Act 2, and this Renoir mourns the son that died, he tells Verso, "The pain of losing you, she made me inherit it." Painted Verso says, "That son was a stranger." This is such a small but important moment for Verso, because it's reflective of how he feels about everything. He is a stranger to that Verso's real family, and that Verso was a stranger to his. Unlike Renoir, who is blurring the lines, Verso does not. The two worlds are different, the two families are different, and so are Verso and Painted Verso. So where does that leave this Verso? Stuck between reality and the canvas, Verso is a mixture of real Verso, his mother's creation, and then the Verso that he became, which is exactly the problem. Verso is not the Verso his mother gave birth to, or the one Clea and Alicia grew up with. He's not the Verso who painted the canvas, and he's not the Verso that died. He is an imitation, a stand-in, a fake. Painted by his mother, he was created to fill a void, to fill the shoes of someone else. Aline recreated the son she loved, but with all the memories of what she wanted to have been the truth instead. His entire childhood and memories have been fabricated. He has no real past, and the one he remembers has been altered through the eyes of Aline. Instead, the Verso we know is a shadow of the man he was molded after, and he knows it. Verso is a shadow to everyone. For Aline, he is the shadow of the son she refuses to give up, a replacement. For real Renoir and real Clea, he is a shadow of a loss they've tried to move forward from, a reminder. For Maëlle, he is a shadow of what she did, the brother she lost, the life she'll never have with him, and a reminder of what she blames herself for. Even for Monoko and Esquier, he is a shadow of the best friend that they knew. For Luné and Ciel, he is a shadow to the friend that they lost, Gustave, a stand-in. Everything is a reminder of how Verso isn't the original, even to the player. The narrative kills Gustave, and in his place, Verso becomes the stand-in. He is a reminder of who was lost for him to be there. But the player in Expedition 33 all miss Gustave, and despite them coming to accept Verso by the end, he feels the loss of Gustave and how he will never be him. Even the world he exists within was created by the real Verso. He is constantly reminded of this. I think his combat line, "Let's carve a path," is really reflective of who Verso is. He is trying to carve his own path, while living under the burden of being Aline's stand-in son, while being the son that Painted Renoir wants him to be, while being the brother that Painted Alicia needs, and also wanting to be the brother that Maëlle needs. He's trying to find his own life, while everyone around him dictates who he is and how they want him to be for them. It's rather sad when you think about how defined his life has been for him, which is exactly what the real Verso experienced. But this painted version, what does Verso really have of his own? What identity has he carved out for himself? How can he feel real in a life like this? When he enters the painted city of Lumiere and sees the looming statues of Verso, does he stand in the shadow and wonder if he measures up? Does he feel the presence of Verso in everything he does and everywhere he goes? He knows that he isn't the real thing, and I think what's worse than his own realization about all of this is that he knows that everyone around him knows it too. Monoko and Esquier say they don't bring up the real Verso because they think it will upset him. Maëlle sees Gustave as her real family, and Verso even reveals that he let Gustave die because he thought if Maëlle still had her connection to him, it would be enough for her not to want to destroy the canvas. He didn't think that he was enough, that if Maëlle knew that Verso was also in the canvas, that his existence wouldn't have been enough for her not to want to destroy it. He doesn't even give weight to his own existence when it comes to Mael. And this makes you think, how did Verso get this way? There was a time when Verso wanted to live, desperately. He was fighting for it. Even after meeting Clair at the bottom of the monolith, even after she took his painted sister and told Verso the truth. In his journal written shortly after discovering the truth, he says, "We deserve to live, all of us. We deserve to exist." But after 67 years, Verso no longer believes this. And I think this is because the more that Verso tried to go out on his own and discover who he really was, instead it just showed him how little of himself he actually had. Clair would be the one to tell Verso the hard truth, that the world, his family, and him are painted copies, imitations of the real thing. Clair, who sees him as nothing more than a creation, was most likely cold and curt about the truth, and then she tried to kill him. His first encounter with the real world is cold, and Clair, who looks and sounds just like the sister that he knew, doesn't care about him at all. And now he knows that she and the real Renoir both want him destroyed. How do you accept that reality? How do you accept that you were just an inconvenience to be erased at the whim of a powerful painter? Which life do you accept as real? Which family do you help? What life do you live? How do you question who you are when knowing this? Would you not question everything? Every memory, every feeling, every thought? Your entire perspective of reality has been destroyed. If we are creations of our experiences and thoughts, but you found out yours had been created and molded by your mother, who created you from ink, how would you look at yourself and your world, knowing what was really out there, outside of the canvas? For Verso, he was never the same, but there was a time when he tried to live his own life, before knowing the truth and even after, for a time. Before the fracture, Verso had become close to Julie, and when his mother went missing, she joined him to help him find her. But the subsequent fight with Clair revealed Renoir and Verso's immortality, specifically to Julie. Seeing him and Renoir survive fatal wounds while the rest of Expedition Zero didn't, made her suspicious, especially after seeing his wound healed. So she did the unthinkable. Her and the other expeditioners abducted Verso to interrogate him. The woman he loved kidnapped him, bound him, and questioned him. And I think this moment changed Verso. It removed the boundaries of what he was willing to do. Because in this moment, being questioned and almost exposed, Verso is forced to kill the expeditioners and Julie. He runs his sword right through the woman that he loves, all to protect a mother that he doesn't truly know. But Julie is the perfect embodiment of Verso's life, something that he had begun to have for himself, someone that he loved. But in the end, his family forced him to ruin his glimmer of a life. His family not only forced his hand to make him kill her, but in the process kill a part of himself too. His family was always in control, but this was a major catalyst to how much. How his father had begun to manipulate him against the people of Lumiere, making him believe they were Clair's creations. How then Verso was forced to choose between his family and everything else. And that would sum up the rest of Verso's life. In his journal, where he apologizes for what he did to Julie, he believes that him and his painted father are trying to free Aline from the real Renoir, that once they do, she will bring Julie back. He has this hopefulness about what they're trying to do, even after what he did, because he understands why Julie didn't trust him and why she abducted him, because she did something awful because she thought it was the right thing, which is exactly what Verso was doing, the right thing. To save his family, his world, the people of Lumiere, he had to kill Julie and the expeditioners. And this would be the beginning of Verso's endless push and pull, both trying to be himself, but trying to help his family and friends, and also trying to understand his place in all of this. There's a moment at camp where Verso cuts himself in half. He endures excruciating pain with a smile on his face to bring joy to his sister and his newfound friends. This is the real Verso, a man who will endure massive amounts of self-inflicted pain, all while wearing a mask of happiness to bring a little joy to others. But this also represents how he is pulled in two directions, the canvas and the reality, his painted family and the real one, his own identity and the shadow of Verso. Verso is stuck in the middle of everything, and he's destroying himself to be there. You have to wonder, how many expeditions did he do his little trick for? Minoko has seen him do it, probably more than once. Verso spent time with many expeditions, and many of them became his friends. He spent so much time trying to fit in with them while trying to reject his connection to his painted family. But he's a stranger to everyone around him. The expeditions never truly knew him, and I think 33 was the one closest to seeing the real Verso, and it's because of Mael. Maybe at first he was more honest, and over time he became less honest with the expeditions. But with Mael, he seems a bit more truthful, which still really isn't that truthful. He's still hiding so much of himself, his past, and his purpose. Because by the time of Expedition 33, Verso has spent years watching his friends die at the hands of his father. After 67 years, this is no longer the Verso from his letter to Julie. He no longer thinks that he deserves to live. There's this narrative that people tout about Verso that he was always planning on destroying the canvas. But no, he wanted to survive. He wanted what Lune accuses him of disregarding, a way to find a middle ground between both extremes. He wanted to live, and he wanted the people in the canvas to live. But life keeps forcing cruel choices, said by Renoir, is the epitome of the entire story. Verso has such little control over his own life, because his family keeps forcing him in these situations. After the fracture and everything that happened with Expedition Zero and Julie and Clea and Painted Clea, Verso still had hope. But Renoir, knowing the truth, would begin dedicating his life to protecting his family, and most of all, Aline, as the real Renoir began erasing the people of Lumiere. The painted Renoir began killing expeditioners, who ventured to the continent with the purpose of killing the paintress. We don't know much about this time, but if Verso joined his father, he would have had to have killed expeditioners alongside his father, adding to the blood on his hands after Julie. But to protect his family, he would do anything. It's really up for speculation if Verso killed expeditioners alongside his father back then, but whatever exactly happened, this time of protecting the paintress at any cost took a toll on Verso. So he leaves his family behind and goes out on his own. He joins expeditions and his purpose shifts. He sees how desperate the expeditioners are to kill the paintress, and how much suffering his family is inflicting on everyone in Lumiere. And eventually Verso decides to kill the paintress too, to stop everything. His inner turmoil and conflict would eat him alive. He loves his mother, he loves his sister, and even despite everything, he loves his father. But his mother is suffering. His family is broken, both families. And in their despair, they're killing so many expeditioners and making the world inside the canvas suffer. All the gestrels that have died and are awaiting reincarnation. All the grandees who have died. All the beautiful work inside the canvas that has been destroyed. All because of Verso's very existence. Which is why it's so ironic that Verso joins his family in doing what he hates that they're doing. Making people suffer and die to save one another. Because they're both trying to save each other at the cost of so many others in the process. Like mother, like son in this case. But Verso is most like his father. Painted Renoir says a very important line to Verso. If saving you means losing you, then so be it. Which sums up his character. Renoir is desperate to save his family from themselves, and he is willing to become their enemy to do so. He knows that he is forced to make these cruel choices for them when they are unable. He knows Aline is not in her right mind to be rational and reasonable. He knows that Mael is too young and shrouded in grief to see a life after it. He thinks the same of Verso, that he can't make the decisions for himself. It's why they fought and literally almost killed each other. They're both controlling and making decisions for others, because they both believe they're doing the right thing for their family. This exact dynamic is why I think the Mask Keeper is Verso and Visages is Renoir. Visage, the Mask Keeper, and the island itself tell a story about Verso, but also Renoir. Renoir's axons are both a reflection of his family members and himself, and he usually paints a supplementary portrait with them. For Seren, it was Tissure. For Reacher, I haven't decided yet. But for the Mask Keeper, who is the true axon, I think Visage is a reflection of Renoir's mask and the many faces that he plays for his family when they need him to. Verso and Renoir are both the same, wearing whatever mask they feel those around them need, whatever mask they need to achieve their goal. Visage is an orchestrator, a conductor, and an expert, but he's also so tired, and I think that is reflected in Visage. Visage, being a conductor, controlling everything, is kind of the embodiment of a father figure teaching his children what they know. After all, we are at least a little bit a product of our parents. Verso is similar, but he's different. Deceptive in both how he presents himself to be, but also how he feels. It's also interesting watching the witty banter from the Mask Keeper because it's very reminiscent of Verso. It's intended to be disarming. The Mask Keeper even says, "You won't need your weapons, I'm harmless." It's a lie from the very first moment. He also offers this direct path, and it's confusing because when the Mask Keeper is asked where the other paths go, he doesn't answer. He simply says you're free to traverse them. He answers no questions directly, something that Verso is very good at. But like the Mask Keeper says, masks are not just to obscure, they may also illuminate, which is exactly what the mask riddles do. It's important to remember that Visage and the entire island were painted by Renoir, meaning that this is a depiction of his real son, not the painted Verso. This is a reflection of the real Verso and his struggle that his father both saw and understood. The riddles say, "He who painted this world, seeking what he could not grasp, longing to share with those he loves. Behind his mask, what could it be? Joy. He who lives in between, behind his veil emotions swell, for a life forced to paint. What is he but a reflection of? Sadness. He who cannot fight fate, behind his scowl emotions blaze, but in the shadows, his temper fades. What am I but a mask of anger?" This goes more into the life and struggles of the real Verso, but even though they are separate and different, the real Verso and painted Verso were extremely similar. Their sadness, pretend joy, and anger are all hidden behind their carefully placed mask, both forced to live lives they didn't want, at the control and whim of someone else, both pretending to be happy for others, both becoming what others needed, and both also using masks to control how they felt on the outside, even if it wasn't true. But the most interesting thing about the connection between the Mask Keeper and Verso, and Visage and Renoir, is their need to control. Not only do they control what they reveal and what mask they use to hide, but they both control everyone else in the same sense that they're manipulating others by revealing only what they choose. And ultimately, they both make decisions for others, while getting mad at others for making decisions for them. The Desandre family is full of hypocrites, thinking they all know best for the others. When Ciel asks, "He who guards truth with lies, guard as in protect or guard as in control?" Monoko says yes, because Verso and Renoir do both. Renoir and Verso both operate from the sidelines, manipulating others as they need to. For Verso, he becomes an expeditioner. For Renoir, he becomes the curator. They both guide the narrative and direction of where they want the expeditioners to end up, killing the paintress. Verso, several times directly, hides information or obscures the truth on purpose. But the curator essentially does the same thing. He hides who he is. He doesn't act as himself. And when Verso hides the truth, the curator goes along with it. They are the same. Their need to guide things in the shadows is even reflected in the landscape of the Visage Island, with the faces and eyes inside. They track you as you move. It's unnerving, like everything on this island. When Ciel says, "I know they're Nevrons, but witnessing the sorrow of others, I can't help but feel for them. To which Minogo says a noble but tremendously fatal impulse. In Expedition 39's journal, Albert says, the Nevrons around here behave so strangely, almost like they don't really want to kill us. They still do, though. The Nevrons reflect Verso's inner turmoil. He doesn't want to kill, but he will, and getting close to him can be fatal. And even the ways that he kills are intentional. Clair Obscur's writing is so intentional in every element of the game that even Verso's abilities provide insight into his character. Some of his moves are Burden, Defiant Strike, Endbringer, From Fire, Leadership, Light Holder, Phantom Stars, Sabotage, and Angel Eyes. Burden, From Fire, and Sabotage stand out to me. With his ability Burden, he takes all status effects from everyone else and applies them to himself. A constant trait that Verso is doing. He hides things from people thinking that he is saving them from some kind of pain, thinking that he's doing the right thing, so he shoulders the weight on his own. Even his main ultimate, building up to perfection, is a reflection of Verso. I don't think it's about him trying to be perfect for himself, but being perfect for everyone else. There's truly meaning in everything. Even the bodies made of flowers are beautiful, but they're ominous, almost like a graveyard. Then the faces, they scream at you if you get too close. The faces hide how they feel. Even the smile of the mask are deceptive. The island's main color is also red, the color of blood and pain. It's creepy, it's uneasy, and it's uncomfortable. There's so much anger and hurt in every part of the island. Everything is destroyed. Even the mime here is wearing glasses to hide its eyes. The songs are also eerie. There are 3 songs that play on the Visage Island, and they're all important. And like everything else on this island, I think these are maybe from Renoir's perspective. Portrait Imparfait is a bit hard to translate since some of the songs are comprised of French, Latin, and a sort of made-up language, so there's no direct translation, but from what I could find, this song seems to be about Renoir wishing that his family removed their mask, that Clea could show her anger, that Verso could show his pain, and that Alicia would cry? The second song, I think, is Renoir reminiscing about his time with Verso, about the times they laughed. But it may also be from the perspective of Alicia or maybe even Clea. It says, "He gave his life for mine, and I will always mourn. My brother's gone, but his love will live on. Love will live on." The final song isn't really a full song, it's just about heartfelt sorrow. It's just so fascinating how much of Renoir is inside these axons, which is why the songs and the Fading Man provide more insight. The Fading Man says, this is a part of the real Verso story, because the real Verso and Painted Verso only met at the end of the story. The Painted Verso is just that similar to the real one that everything on this island applies to him. But where does one end and one begins? As much as Verso distanced himself from his family and tried to carve his own path, Painted Verso still clings to his mother and sister, and the real Dysandra family. I think he wants to be Verso, for all those childhood memories to be real. He wants to experience some of that. And I think meeting Maëlle after watching her for all those years opens a part of him that he didn't want to recognize. It's why in Verso's drafts you can see so many moments where Verso is so playful, trying to grasp the childhood that he never had. He constantly looks to Maëlle to see if she's having fun in this place with him. He's experiencing this slice of what real Verso's life could have been like. All these moments of whimsy and joy. I think he's also partly happy for the real Verso, that there was some happiness inside of him that this area reflects. The two, both real and painted, are both so filled with sadness and anger that this is a reprieve. The battle with Oschio is one of Verso's happiest moments, maybe next to playing the piano with everyone, but this is a very light-hearted, fun moment. He leans into the cheesy one-liners. He's smiling and smirking and making sure that Maëlle is enjoying this as much as he is. There's still so much sadness behind Oschio, though. When he tries to defeat Verso, he says, You will never be a good musician. You have no choice but to paint, reinforcing Verso's worst fears. It may have been the real Verso's fears, but it's still the childhood that Verso remembers. It's still his fear too. Regardless, in this moment, Verso even says it was fun. But the most important moment of Verso's character is right after the fight with Obscur, when Verso says to the fragment of real little boy Verso, "I'm glad I got to experience that for myself. Thank you." He got to experience something for himself, alongside his sister and his new friends and Eskie and Minoko. He got to feel a little bit of Verso's real childhood, of what his own childhood may have been like if he had had one. Verso is so desperate for these moments, and experiencing them with Mael and his friends is just the cherry on top. Though I do think there's a bitter sweetness to it, especially when Eskie and Mael are looking at some of the paintings. They reminisce about their past memories here and about their poems. And Verso is just there listening, detached, listening to the memories of the real Verso and his sister and his best friend, and wishing that it had been him. He's so desperate to connect with those around him that he's often reminded of the connection that he doesn't have. All those years he spent watching Mael from afar must have been torture for him. His sister was just within reach, but he thought he needed to stay away. A reminder of how close they were, but how far he was. But even still, with Mael, he is more open and honest with her. When asked if he could have saved Gustav, Verso can be honest with her and say yes. He keeps everyone at arm's length, but he can't help but yearn for friendship and compassion in return, especially with Mael. He does care, and he wants to be cared about, but he's just so fucked up from watching his family hurt each other and everyone else, all because that he's alive. How would anyone feel with that weight on them? After killing someone you loved, after seeing how much suffering the ones you love are creating. That moment with Lune where he tries to explain to her that he's been doing this to protect his mother is sincere and real, and extremely complicated. But despite everything he's done, he does have real moments with Expedition 33, and he is more honest than maybe he even intends to be. But it doesn't really matter, because he will be forever stuck in the Desandres family cycle of grief, and he's right at the center of it, the cause of it, the catalyst. Verso is actively fighting his family's cycle, but also participating in it. There are so many instances of him mirroring the actions of Aline and Renoir, and just being just as manipulative and controlling as those he's trying to get away from. The letter from Alicia is the perfect example of this. This letter is her choice and her words, and yet Verso decides to keep it from Mael. He does what he thinks is best, just like Renoir does. When Mael and Alicia finally meet, Alicia knows he didn't give it to Mael. I'm sure this isn't the first time Renoir or Verso have made a decision for her, and she's angry about it, to the point that she chooses to be gommaged right in front of him. She could have chosen a private moment with Mael, but she unfroze time and made sure that Verso saw. She didn't even say goodbye. It was a cruel moment of defiance. They both hurt each other. That's what the Desandres do. And ironically, Verso gets mad at Mael, even though he plans to do this to everyone else, even though he's doing the exact same thing, making choices for others. I think that's why it's also so fitting that Mael, who now has her memories back, is quick to both honor Alicia's wishes, but also does so without considering Verso's feelings. The cycle is just repeating itself. The only way for everyone to stop hurting is to end the cycle, which is why Verso wants to kill himself. He doesn't want this life. I'm not going to discuss the endings too much because I already did in another video. Instead, I think Verso's suicidal ideation is more important than the outcome. It doesn't matter what happens during this time with Expedition 33 because he has been suicidal for a very long time. I actually think that despite moments of happiness, the time with them only reaffirms his decision, especially when he realized how his sister was following in the footsteps of his mother, all because of him, not for him. No one is doing this for Verso, not childhood Verso and not painted Verso. They're doing this for their own selfish, all-encompassing grief. And once again, Verso believes that he must control the outcome so that he can make the right decision for his family. But it's more than that. Verso is so guilty, beyond guilty. Not only does he have the weight of those that he killed like Julie, he has the weight of every single person suffering within the canvas on his shoulders. All the people who died in the fracture, all the people who died in the expeditions, the Gestrels, the Grandies, everybody. It's all happening because of him, and he doesn't feel like he deserves it. His own self-worth is completely diminished after destroying himself to protect his family. Seeing Aline suffering on the outside world and seeing Mael walk the same path just solidifies his choice. When he says to Mael, "You will never have to suffer a life you don't want," it's a reflection of his own. He's both jealous that he doesn't have that power, that he isn't a painter, that he isn't a true Dysandra, and he's also making sure that she doesn't follow in his footsteps, living a life of pain and regret and anger. He wants her to have what he can't have, a real life with a real family in the real world, where she can make decisions for herself. I truly do believe that Verso originally wanted to find some kind of middle ground with his family and the fate of the canvas. But the final act is a culmination of all the reasons he can't see that path anymore. This is only doubled when he sees the real Renoir and the real Mael. Renoir others him, apologizing by saying, "Please accept a Dysandra family apology." He also calls Verso Aline's finest work. Everything about this interaction is Renoir making Verso remember that his real family is not Verso's. He is not Verso. He is just a ghost, to be repainted at their will, to be controlled by them, to be created by them. He's not a part of the Dysandra family, which is only reaffirmed by Mael, who outright tells him he's not Verso. Renoir doesn't even look at Verso later, nor does Aline. I think it's more that he's a reminder of their grief than something out of intentional malice, but that has to affect Verso. He's, in a way, being put in his place. I can't imagine how painful it would be to see a mirror of your family treat you this way. The final nail in the coffin that you are not one of them. While this family is grieving him, Verso is grieving the life that he never had with them. Even still, in the end, Verso sacrifices himself for his family. I don't think he's trying to emulate what the real Verso did, but being Aline's work, we can see the echoes of the real Verso within painted Verso, and this is a major one. He wants to die for himself, yes, but he also wants to die for everyone else. It's almost fitting that in the end, he ultimately dies just like the real Verso, mirroring the lines of "you're okay," just like the real Verso, only adds to how much they are alike. One thing I always find a bit ironic about this is that if the real Verso's initial sacrifice was honored by his family, they would have respected his wishes to die for his family and save his sister. But alas, the Dysandra family is full of controlling hypocrites, engulfed by their grief. The entire Dysandra family and Verso are fascinating characters. There's honestly too much to say about them. If I went through every action, every word, and every expression that Verso has, it would be a 20-hour video. But he's so complex that there would be enough to dissect. He's extremely interesting, and there's so much more to him than meets the eye. I just wanted to kind of focus on a few moments that really stand out to me, that really define who I think that Verso is. I think it's a huge disservice to the writing and acting to just dismiss him as some twirling, mustache, evil douchebag who just betrays everyone and that he sucks. There's layers and layers and layers to his motivation, and I love looking at him a bit deeper. I also hope that I conveyed myself well. I started writing this video about 10 months ago and just kind of spliced it back together to try and finish it. These are very nuanced topics, so I hope I did them some justice, and maybe made you think about Verso differently. But let me know what you think. Do you think Verso's actions make sense for his character? Which ending do you choose and why? And do you understand why Verso is the way that he is? I don't know if I'll do more Clair Obscur videos after this. Honestly, they stopped performing well on YouTube, which is kind of why I stopped, but if there's more future content or if this one does all right, I'll dive back in. Anyways, if you're here, thank you so much for watching. I love this game, I love dissecting it, and I would love to get back into it. But let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my channel members. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. Thank you all so much for your support, and I will see you next time. And also happy 1-year anniversary to Clair Obscur Expedition 33.